And also try and help us understand this further. We're being joined by Mr. Elijah J. Magnier, who's a war correspondent and an analyst, and he's joining us live in this broadcast. Now, Mr. Magnier, what we are witnessing is the first potential breakthrough in this war. It is being dubbed as a ceasefire, but it is not a ceasefire in the sense that most people understand. This is more in the nature of a humanitarian pause, and it is come into effect along with an exchange of hostages for Palestinian prisoners. What do you take of what has unfolded this evening?
Thank you for having me. What's happening today is a big win for the Palestinian people to have a break of the 48 days of bombardment against the entire strip in the north and in the south. So the exchange of prisoners and hostages on both sides is confirming that they can still talk to each other even via the mediation of Qatar. And they... Hello, yes?
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Elijah.
Yes, so it confirmed that they can still talk to each other, both sides, Hamas and the Israelis, via Qatar, and they can reach an agreement. And we have seen how Hamas has honored is part of the deal by releasing 13 Israelis holding double nationalities and 10 from Thailand and Philippines. So this ceasefire will give a break to the population. It will give a break also for the family of the Israelis and the family of the Palestinians to reunite with their dear one, particularly after the attack of the 7th of October, and for the Palestinian after many years in jail, for some of them that are women and some of the children of the age, some of them of the age of 14, that have been released today or are expected to be released today and in the next 4 days.
Mr. Magnier, as you've covered war before, you've been covering in different war theaters such as in Syria, Iraq, Libya, Sudan, etc. I want to ask you a question in terms of how the Israeli military generals would be looking at this war and how Benjamin Netanyahu would also be analyzing this. The war, for it to proceed, also needs political backing. And at this moment, not everyone, even within Netanyahu's cabinet, is convinced that this deal to secure the hostages is the right one. Itamar Ben-Gvir, the Israeli interior minister, has slammed this deal and has said that it is amoral and it is a disaster. With that being said, do you think Benjamin Netanyahu will have the backing of his own cabinet ministers to extend this humanitarian pause to secure the release of more Israeli hostages?
This is a very good question. First of all, we have seen the Israelis are prepared to release 300 prisoners, which means that for the first 50 prisoners that are going to be released, or the captives that are going to be released by Hamas, it is going to take 4 days. Now, in exchange of the 50, the Israelis are releasing 150, not 300, which means that the Israeli government is prepared for an extension of another 4 days, or perhaps more. However, I have seen many wars that Israel has carried out against Gaza and Lebanon, and I can tell you, from my experience with Benjamin Netanyahu, is not someone who likes a long war, and this is a very long war if he wants to listen to the radicals in his government that brought him to what's happening and what happened on the 7th of October. Now, we have seen a difference between Ben-Gvir as the security minister and the finance minister, Smotrich, that he is also one of the hawks in the government of Benjamin Netanyahu, and he is a very far radical minister. And Smotrich considered that this is a good deal because the Israeli domestic pressure is huge on the government, and the Israeli domestic people in the people of Israel want the release of their dear one as soon as possible, and they want the cessation of bombardment to release all the hostages, because they are killing them with the bombardment.
Absolutely indeed, Mr. Magnier. Do continue to stay on with us. Meanwhile, I'm told that my colleague Susan Tehrani is joining us live from New York. Susan, I'm sure what is unfolding at this moment in the Gaza Strip near the Rafah border crossing and also at West Bank is being very closely followed in Washington, D.C. as well. Give us a sense of how the American leadership, Joe Biden has been backing the Israeli war effort to the hilt, but what is the mood like in Washington, D.C. at this moment, looking at this first potential breakthrough in this war?
Yeah, of course, Washington continues to be operating right now, but since we are during Thanksgiving holiday, the president is in Nantucket right now, but he may be speaking to us publicly today later on. But as for now, we are certain that the United States has said that it's monitoring the situation very closely. So is the president and the leadership here in the United States. But there was sort of a glimmer of hope that during this first batch of hostages, Americans would have been part of it as well. The United States says that it hopes that during the next release of hostages on the part of Hamas, perhaps Americans will be part of that as well. But as you mentioned, being very closely monitored, notably, for security reasons as well.
Absolutely indeed. And my follow-up question to you is this. The Palestinian faction Hamas has said that America is a part of the problem because it is arming Israel. It is essentially giving the weapons that are being used by the Israelis in the Gaza Strip. And we've not seen any American hostages being released. Do you think the negotiations that are all happening at this moment behind the scenes would require some kind of concession from the Americans in terms of what is happening in the Gaza Strip at this moment?
Yeah, that's a very valid point, not only on the part of Americans, but what Israel is willing to do moving forward, while it does say publicly that it's going to all out continue to annihilate Hamas and go into Gaza. But, the fate of those hostages, not just Americans, but the remaining Israelis is also in question. And, from an optics perspective, the fact that no American was released, but we had so many Thai nationals being released, we're already seeing, this is a very bittersweet day, but we're already seeing some sort of glimmers of criticism that why is it that the Biden administration wasn't able to at least release any Americans, and Thailand is receiving their hostages, about a dozen or so.
Absolutely indeed, and the fact that the Thai nationals and the Filipino national release was not even a part of this deal that has happened. Susan, do continue to stay on with us. I'll come back to you in just a bit. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.